Welcome to another video from explainingcomputers.com. This time it's another of my twice yearly channel updates. And in this one we're going to be looking back across the past year so I can give you my top computing picks of 2024, and then we're going to look ahead to computing in 2025. But before all of that, I've got a very exciting announcement about my activities here on YouTube. For over 16 years, I've been making YouTube videos about computing. And indeed, this video marks 9 years of uploading an Explaining Computers video every single Sunday. And right now I've got no plans to stop doing this. I not least want to hit the 10-year anniversary of weekly uploads, but I would sometimes like to make videos about other subjects. And so what I've therefore done is to launch a brand new YouTube channel. And this is called Christopher Barnatt. I just used my own name, and on this new channel I'm going to be posting videos about film and video making, about model making and other construction projects, and about retro technology. My plan right now is to upload a new video to the new channel roughly once a month. But to get things going, I've already uploaded 3 videos. And these are an introduction, a welcome to the new channel, a video in which I get an old model steam engine up and running, and a maker video in which I do a bit of roto casting. So, if you'd like to see more videos from me but about subjects other than computing, why not check out the Christopher Barnatt YouTube channel. And with this shameless self-promotion out of the way, let's get back to explaining computers. In 2024, we've had our fair share of big mainstream computing announcements, including AMD's Zen 5 Ryzen chips and Intel's 15th generation Core Ultra 200S series processors. The latter use the new LGA 1851 socket, have delivered disappointing performance, and perhaps most significantly have an integrated MPU. However, in a world in which more and more people have sufficient computing power, the focus on this channel has not been on the latest processors. And so, what has caught my attention? Well, for a start, we've seen the release of new versions of my 3 favourite Linux distros. Specifically, in July, we saw the arrival of Linux Mint 22 as we're running here. In April, we also welcomed the latest long-term support release of Ubuntu, namely Ubuntu 24.04, and in the first Explaining Computers video of the year, we looked at the excellent Zorin OS 17. This was actually released on December the 20th, 2023, but I consider it close enough to 2024 for our purposes here. Turning to applications, 2024 was the first year in which I ran Autograph. This is a great piece of layer-based compositing and motion graphics software that's available for Windows, Mac and Linux. While first released in 2023, in 2024 Autograph had some significant upgrades, which now make it a viable alternative to Adobe After Effects. In August 2024, we also saw the release of DaVinci Resolve 19, an even better version of the increasingly popular video editor. However, the software that made the biggest change to my own computing activities this year was this Photop, an online Photoshop alternative available in both free and paid versions, and which is pronounced Photop and not Photopea. Back in May, I tested every credible browser-based Photoshop alternative, and my conclusion was that Photop is by far the best. And indeed, I consider Photop to be the best alternative to Photoshop of any kind that can be used here in Linux. In fact, in 2024, I became so impressed with Photop that I started using it regularly in Windows, Linux and Chrome OS, and I purchased an annual $50 subscription to do so without advertising. When it comes to new hardware, 2024 saw the release of this, the Argonne Neo 5 M.2 NVMe case for the Raspberry Pi 5. This has an SSD compartment underneath. There it is. Let's replace the cover. And if we flick it back over and remove the top, we can also see that inside it has got a very good and also a very quiet cooling solution. The Argonne Neo 5 is a very robust, very well made, and in my view allows us to build the best ever Raspberry Pi system. Moving on, over the past year I've looked at many new single board computers. Of these, my pick for the top new SBC of 2024 was the Radza X4. This has an M.2 NVMe SSD slot, various RAM and eMMC options, and an Intel N100 processor. And this allows it to run a very wide range of operating systems with no software support issues. Also in 2024, I was very impressed with several new RISC-V computers. These included this, the Banana Pi BPI F3, which I used to set up a RISC-V NAS that worked very well indeed. However, it was the week I spent with the DC Roma RISC-V Laptop 2 that was my RISC-V highlight of the year. And I'm very pleased to hear that it's just been announced that this now has official support for Ubuntu 24.04. Finally, two other pieces of hardware that impressed me greatly for what they represent were these two mini ITX boards. The ROC-V ITX with an embedded ARM RK3588 system on a chip, and the Milk-V Jupiter with a RISC-V SpaceMit M1 SoC. I must stress that like other RISC-V hardware right now, the Jupiter is a product for RISC-V developers and pioneers. But my first ARM and RISC-V PC builds were for me both highlights of 2024. Right, having looked back across 2024, let's look ahead to computing in 2025 and some of the subjects I'm likely to be covering on this channel. And top of my list is the end of support for Windows 10 and the associated old hardware glut. I made a video here fairly recently about the end of support for Windows 10 in October 2025, and there are of course lots of different things people might do. Some people will do nothing, they don't mind running a non-supported operating system. Some of us might buy extended security updates for Windows 10 once Microsoft tells us what those will cost for most users. But a lot of people, in particular a lot of companies, will stop using computers that can no longer run a supported version of Windows. And there are going to be tens and tens of millions of those computers, and therefore there's going to be a lot of older hardware coming on the market. We've seen this starting already since the launch of Windows 11, but it's going to accelerate as we get towards October 2025. And this is going to be interesting to watch. What are people going to run on this hardware? Are we going to see more and more people using Linux? Are we going to see the growth of Chromium-based operating systems, FreeBSD, things like that? It is going to be interesting to see. We've never had a situation quite like this before, where so many computers currently running an operating system, currently Windows 10, which is still the dominant version of Windows, where so many computers can't run anything that Microsoft supports. So that I think is going to be very interesting to watch and great for the second use hardware market. Second on my list, we have got two new operating systems for desktop and laptop computers, namely Windows 12 and HarmonyOS for PC. We still don't know exactly when Windows 12 is going to be launched, but we should expect an announcement, I think, in the first half of 2025 at the very latest, and the chances are Windows 12 will launch probably last quarter of 2025, probably around the time we see the end of support for Windows 10. Microsoft, I'm sure, will try and get people to leap straight from Windows 10 to Windows 12 if they haven't gone to Windows 11. We will see what happens with that. It's always interesting when we get a new version of Windows. But we're also, I'm sure, going to see next year the formal announcement and launch, probably, of HarmonyOS for PC. And HarmonyOS, if you're not aware, is an operating system created by Huawei, currently running on mobile devices, tablets and smartphones and things. It's now in a version called HarmonyOS Next, which doesn't rely on Android, and it's going to be out for PC at some point, and reports suggest it's going to be out sooner rather than later. And that doesn't mean everyone's going to be running it. It will depend very much what country in the world you're in as to how much you see of Harmony OS. But as someone who looks at the global situation in terms of the computing market and tries to stay out of the politics, it is going to be interesting to have another competitor to Windows and Linux and Mac OS and things in the PC space. That's going to be very interesting. Third on my list, we have the hardware specification required to run Windows 12, which I strongly suspect will involve having to have an NPU, a neural processing unit, or at the very least there will be a neural compute requirement for running Windows 12 at least to its full extent, which will be a certain number of TOPS that have to be delivered by the CPU and the GPU. Although I do suspect they'll go the route of simply saying you have to have an NPU for Windows 12. So in other words, I think what we've seen with Copilot plus PCs, which have to have a 40 TOPS NPU, I think that is a forerunner of where things are going. And as I noted back at the start of this video, the latest desktop processors from Intel do have an NPU, as do lots of their mobile processors, and as do some processors now from AMD. And I'm sure you could say, well, Chris, surely Microsoft won't be stupid enough to require at the launch of Windows 12 a piece of hardware specification that most users won't have. But guess what? That's exactly what they did with Windows 11. I think there is now a steamroller pushing us forward, like it or not, towards neural computing and the requirement to have an NPU. This said, the next thing on my list is the fact that in 2025 we may start to see the generative AI bubble burst. I am someone who has been very enthusiastic about AI for a very long time, probably about 20 years. My last book, in all ways my last book, was all about the growth of the cognitive computing age. But I think we've got somehow sort of sidelined into thinking that the AI revolution, the cognitive computing revolution, is about generative systems that generate text and images that people don't really want in the first place. It's bizarre. I've become very uncomfortable with the way in 2024 that we've seen search engines start to change from being things we use to find sources of information which we then select and interrogate to things that actually give us summaries, which are experimental and highly selective, and that's really not a good idea. And I think that there is a growing unease about this across society and government, and that therefore we might see the generative AI bubble bursting in 2025. Finally, what I'm sure we will see in 2025 is more and more people using mini PCs. Mini PCs are on the rise. A few weeks ago we had the launch of the latest Mac Mini with the M4 processor, quite an expensive mini PC, and across 2024 loads of people have discovered, for example, how they can use an M100 mini PC for all kinds of things they used to use other things for, not least single board computers. Mini PCs are going to be more and more important in the world of computing. And so here we are at the end of another channel update. The past 12 months have been good for explaining computers, not least we unboxed our gold play button. We hit 1 million subscribers. That was very exciting. And since that time, another 60,000 people have subscribed to the channel. We are still growing. And so I'd like to thank everybody who watches the content here and who has subscribed and remains subscribed, and clicks the like button, leaves comments, keeps this community going. I'd also like to thank all channel members for supporting the channel. Channel memberships has continued to grow throughout 2024, and because this channel has channel members, I don't have to do things like sponsored content. I don't have to interrupt videos and say things like, "And now a message from our sponsor." I don't do that here, and we also don't have to have mid-roll adverts. But now that's it for another video. Although if you want more today, why not check out the new Christopher Barnatt YouTube channel. Please also like and subscribe everywhere, and I hope to talk to you again very soon.